breaking barriers and bridging the gaps between patients and doctors. Welcome to Brainstorming with the Docs and your co-hosts, Dr. Glenn Harrison and Dr. Kolby Condos.
All right, everyone, welcome back to this week's episodes of Brainstorming with Dr. Kolby Condos, myself and Dr. Glenn Harrison. That guy. Say hello, Dr. Glenn.
Hey, Dr. Kolby.
So when we're brainstorming a little bit, pun intended, right? Mm-hmm. So we're brainstorming a little bit about what topics we thought might be really interesting and relevant to a lot of people, and maybe what are some common questions that we have in our clinics individually, and then things that we use in our clinics to maybe springboard some of our patients into other healthier options as far as lifestyle, diet, and all these types of things. So we came up with the idea of maybe breaking down the most efficient and the most clinically proven, up-to-date information as far as exercise goes. So we're going to go into today, what are some really effective, easy to use, fast, time-efficient exercises that you can use at home to get healthy again.
Yeah, but, I sorry for cutting off Dr. Kolby. I love this because I was a guy that used to spend 4 hours in the gym, and it seemed like this burden that was impossible to keep up with. And as a result of that, my body never changed. I became exhausted and fatigued and actually developed muscle atrophy. So this is something I wished I would have known years ago.
Well, and then on top of that too, as a new father, so I have a 2-year-old, I guess it's not new, but still new, I guess, kind of. One of the big issues for me is time constraints, right? So it's like, you're trying to raise a family, you're trying to be a good spouse, good husband, good wife, you're trying to raise your kids, and then you're also trying to grow your business and be the best physician you can, or the best, engineer, whatever you are that you can. This is for you. This is going to be awesome. And it all started because of a book that I read, and then we kind of dove a little bit deeper into the literature. So we're going to go through basically in the next 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes about interval training, and when you look at interval training, a lot of people think, oh man, I can't do interval training. Interval training's for elite level athletes. Interval training's for Ironman. Interval training's for, Olympic sprinters. Interval training's for, the world's strongest man. That's not at all true. And here's basically the premise that interval training is. An interval is basically any exercise that is a variation of intensity, right? So a brisk walk to a slow walk to a brisk walk is an interval.
That's right.
And the sweet thing about this is that they did studies on this, and what they did was they took, endurance athletes, or they took 2 groups of people. They did the interval group, and then they did the regular endurance group, or the regular cardiovascular exercise group, and they did muscle biopsies. And when they did those muscle biopsies, they looked for the amount of mitochondria in the muscle tissue. So mitochondria are basically, the energy, the powerhouse of the cell, and that's what makes the energy. And what they found after doing these muscle biopsies, and they did a 6 or 8 week trial, and they did, an hour of aerobic exercise at a constant rate, a constant pace, constant heart rate. And then they did interval training. And I think they did, I think it was 15 minutes 3 times a week or something like that. I can't remember. Maybe it was 20 minutes. And what they found is the amount of mitochondria per muscle fiber cell, or per cell in the muscle fibers, was actually the same. So it shows that the interval training is as efficient at gaining mitochondrial density as the prolonged constant exercise, which is pretty awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about maybe how you implement this, or maybe break it down for people about how maybe they can start implementing interval training into their daily lives.
Yeah, I think the big thing is when people come into my office, sometimes they're in a workout regimen. I work with trainers, I work with athletes, triathletes, Ironmen, and everybody kind of has their own thing and their own want. So if I want to generalize here, it's really to have some strategy that anybody can implement. That's the big thing. And if you can implement it, then it's worthwhile. If we introduce a strategy, if I introduce a strategy to my clients, or you do, Dr. Kolby, and we introduce a strategy that's impossible to follow, it might as well, we shouldn't even discuss it, because it's unattainable. So with my clients, I don't get them to work out any more than 30 to 40 minutes every other day. So 3 to 4 times a week, that's it. And even athletes, that's all I would push for, but it has to be done strategically. So the days of forever on a treadmill or forever on a Stairmaster or rowing machine or whatever it is, or just a spin class, those days are done. I can honestly say that. Just chronic activity. The problem with the chronic activity where it's doing the same exercise over and over and over and over for long periods of time is the muscles don't have a chance to recover. So that's one problem with traditional exercises. You just keep doing the same thing over. They don't recover. They don't recover, and they start to adapt to the same activity. Our bodies are always trying to do the activity that we're always challenging ourselves with more and more efficiently. And that's actually what we don't want. We want to surprise the muscles. We want to shock them. We want to change our system up. So when people come in, it doesn't really matter what kind of interval training, as you're talking, Dr. Kolby, of what we want them to do. We just want them to exhaust certain muscle groups and then have time off for recovery, and then exhaust hopefully a different set of muscle groups, and then recovery and exhaust and recovery. And where they hit that same muscle group maybe every 5 days, every week, if that. And with that short period of time, if it's done with intensity and purpose, 20, 30, 40 minutes, 3-4 times a week is remarkable. But that's kind of what I try to do is high intensity interval, bursts and breaks. And if you ever want to see the body type that interval training will give you versus long duration activities, just look at the difference in physique of a marathon runner versus a sprinter. It's drastically different. And the marathon runner doesn't only has a difficult time putting lean muscle mass on, but their collagen tissues, their joint tissues actually degenerate because they're not having the opportunity to recover. So I know you can pick it up from here, Dr. Kolby. Maybe you can go in the neurology.
Yeah, I actually have a perfect example of this. So I have a endurance biker that came into my clinic, and he's like, "Man, I'm not hitting my PRs. My times are getting slower. I'm exhausted. I'm peeing all the time. Like, what's going on?" We ran some blood tests on him, and he was actually he had overtraining syndrome. So he was actually starting to break down his muscle to a point where those enzymes were actually showing up in his blood work. So that's another consequence of that can be like overtraining a little bit. I think that the biggest thing that I appreciate about interval training is how safe it is for just about everybody. And I guess after I was reading these studies and I read this book, when I started to break it down, I'm like, man, I don't know. Like my wife's grandmother just had a heart attack last year. And, she's going through all of this cardiac rehab. And I'm like, God, is there a more effective way? She's going like every single day and they're sticking her on a treadmill. And I read this book and I'm like, oh, we should put her on interval training. And here's the thing, everyone thinks like high intensity interval training, right? Mm-hmm. It's just the change in intensity. It doesn't necessarily have to be high. Like everyone hears high intensity interval training. We're not just talking about high intensity. We're just talking about interval training too. Because if you think about it, someone who has had a stroke or, or cardiovascular incidents or a heart attack or whatever it is, they walk from their bed to the doorway and they stop, put their hands on their knees, then they start walking again, right? That's an interval. That's an interval. That's an interval. We were talking about this last week or a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about, what defines an interval? What defines of intensity? And the phrase intensity is different for everybody. If you're 85, 95 years old, again, walking to the edge of maybe down the hallway, that could be an interval. And that's okay. Take your break and then do that next interval and take your break and do that next interval. Right. You're still going to achieve the benefits. And then on top of that, like you said, it's just the change of intensity. Once you've gotten to where you can do that, then you walk a little bit faster and then a little bit faster, and then back down. It's really simple to start to implement, and the health benefits are just immense. Some of the research that's coming out is it can really dramatically help lower your A1C for diabetes. It can help impact your cholesterol. It can really, the health benefits are enormous, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Like we've talked about, I work out 3 times a week and I work out for an hour each time. So 3 hours total a week, and that's it. And it's been completely life-changing because not only do you feel better, you look better, but then you also have more energy to put forth into these other endeavors in your life, whether that's to be a husband or a wife or parent or an employee or a business owner or whatever. It just really comes around full circle, and it can really help your life. And then on top of that, it springboards other aspects of your health too, because then you're like, oh, okay, I'm exercising, I'm going to start eating a little bit better too.
Yeah, for sure. You have a different demand for different fuel, real food. But what you said is exactly right. It's possible. I never thought I could maintain a certain physique without a little amount of exercise. There's a group of people that I end up seeing at the gym because we go at the same time all the time. And I'll go in there. They're already there. They've been there 30, 40, 50 minutes. I'm in there and I'm already out of there and they're still there. And I've had some of them ask me, Dr. Harrison, why are your workouts so short? And I said this, and then when I think back to it, I think it sounded very arrogant. I said, well, I don't need to work out any longer. And then I had to make some clarity. I had to clarify that, it's the intensity. It's not looking at your phone. It's not, taking breaks. It's not having a conversation. You go in there, you push the intensity, whatever your level of intensity is, and then you get the heck out of there. You fatigue your muscle groups, and then you get out of there.
Right. So, and it doesn't even have to be like weight training,
Exactly.
So one of the exercises I do, and this is how simple it truly is. I live above a park, a kid's park, and there's a big set of stairs that go down into the park because I live on the hill. So what I do is I walk down the stairs and then I sprint up them. I walk down the stairs and then I sprint up them. I do that 5 times. By the time I'm done, I'm exhausted. I come home. It's been 25 minutes.
That's exactly.
It's that quick.
Yeah. So anybody listening to this, if you ever wonder, like, what is the most efficient way of working out? An interval of intensity, your intensity, is by far the best on every level. And it is possible. If you have 20 minutes, 3-4 times a week, you can drastically change not only your physique, but your health.
Exactly.
Your blood numbers, everything.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It just really is super efficient. Lowers the inflammatory cascade, promotes a ton of positive mental health benefits, helps you lower your blood sugar levels, helps your adrenals adapt. I've used this, and actually I've used interval training for people who suffer from maybe some adrenal insufficiencies and stuff like that. People who have difficulty sleeping, maybe as a management method where we have them get up first thing in the morning and they do some high intensity exercise. So it can help surge that cortisol, so then it can kind of slowly taper off as the day goes, so that we can help maybe normalize their circadian rhythm so they can sleep better at night. There's a ton of health benefits.
Oh yeah, everything from memory impairment to concentration to mental endurance to, I don't know if there's really anything that an interval training won't help. I guess we talk about this level of intensity. If you are extremely exhausted and adrenally compromised and you've been dealing with chronic fatigue for, 3+ months, maybe don't think about pushing and exerting more energy just yet. Find yourself a doctor or somebody that's going to work with you to get that energy level up a little bit so you have some currency of energy to use for your interval training or whatever kind of activity, because you don't want to push yourself too hard when you're already down and out. That would be the only disclaimer that I would have about physical activity, but that's physical activity in general.
Absolutely. I think that this stuff is incredibly useful. Obviously, having someone who is well-versed in this type of thing would be a totally invaluable tool for not only your health, but like your total wellness and stuff like that too. So if you guys do have any questions, this is going to be kind of a short one because I think we kind of beat it to death. What do you think?
I think so. I think we knocked it out of the park, and they can always reach out. Like, I know what's your contact information, Dr. Kolby?
So we do have a Facebook page. Our Facebook page is North Lakes Chiropractic and Functional Neurology. Our website is www.northlakescheropractic.com. Those are probably the two best ways of getting a hold of us.
Mm-hmm. Great. And
yours?
Yeah. If you need to reach out to me, I'm on the other side of the country. I'm in Denver, Colorado, but we work with people remotely as well, and we can answer any of your questions. Probably the best is to go to our website. That's www.drgharrison.com, or just Google the Center of Functional Medicine Denver, and you'll find us. And there's lots that can be done. But if you're looking at changing your physique, if you're looking at driving energy, and time is of the essence, it is for everybody. You don't need a bunch of crazy equipment, and you don't even need a gym. As long as you have a clock and you're paying attention to the time you're doing it, and focus on intensity. Focus on your intensity and your interval, and I think you can drastically make changes.
Absolutely, 100% agree. You need a pair of shoes and some motivation. That's about it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So I guess that's about all that I have for today.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Obviously, if you guys have questions, please reach out to us. If it's your first time listening to us, we do have a broad variety of topics that we've broken down in the past and will continue to in the future. So please stay tuned. And if you got value from this content and information, please share it with your friends and family. So until next time, my man, I'm sure we'll come up with something that's current or important, and hopefully you guys get some value out of that one as well. So
we will. All right. Thanks, Dr. Kolby.
Talk to you soon, buddy.